president of Dealer Synergy and the creator of the Millionaire... Where we at, Ken? Everybody, this is SVB and the place to be is CBT News. We have a special guest today. Actually, we're a guest of his, and we did a takeover with Jim Fitzpatrick of CBT News. How you doing, my friends?
I've lost all control. This is incredible. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely.
I didn't have to travel very far for this.
No.
That's nice.
Well, they have a way prettier studio than we do, so we wanted to just take advantage of this amazing studio. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for allowing this takeover.
Absolutely.
And so
you just had a great conversation on our show, so thank you.
And make sure everybody checks out CBT News.
That's right.
But Jim, you interview so many people in our industry. Yeah. I wanted to have the honor to be able to interview you for a little bit. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. So can you tell us about how you got into CBT News?
Sure.
You're a car guy, right? So tell us a little about your background.
I'm a car guy, although I've been out of the business now for 20 years. Sold my interest in a Toyota store that I had. I was one of those managing GMs that had a little piece of the action at a great Toyota store in Augusta, Georgia, and left that. Had signed a non-compete, so what are you going to do? You got to be out for a little while. Opened up Force Marketing along with my son John, and who still runs it today, and doing a phenomenal job. But back in 2012, when I stepped down as CEO and John took over Force Marketing, Bridget, who's my co-founder here at CBT News, we decided, the industry really needs some sort of a platform where we can interview great vendors to the industry, but more importantly, dealers, dealer principals, OEM executives, association presidents, and everybody that we can kind of have a kind of a town hall, if you will, every single day here at CBT News, where we're able to share ideas. Every dealer's going through typically the same, pain points as the others, kind of like a huge Dealer 20 meeting, that takes place at CBT News every day. Of course, we produce the news too, so you'll tune into CBT News to watch, some news stories about what's happening. But more importantly, really the pearl, I think, with CBT News and what's led to our success over the last 12 years has been the in-depth interviews that we do with dealer principals, large and small. I've interviewed the president of AutoNation a couple of times. I've had 3 different presidents, and I had the benefit of interviewing all 3 of them, but all types of size, all size dealer groups, whether it's a mom and pop, I say mom and pop, but maybe they have 1 store or they have 2 stores, all the way up to, Lithia or Asbury Automotive Group or AutoNation, as I said, and everybody brings something to the table for those dealers and managers that are listening to our newscast each day.
Did you think, or did you realize, you and Bridget realized that CBT News would have evolved to what it's become now when you first thought of it?
It's a great question. So no, we didn't. We started it actually as a little bit of a passion project, and we said, well, look, let's put this out there, and we'll see if there's any takers, And I'd done pretty well, in my career, and at the time I was 50 years old, and I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. We weren't dependent on it financially, so it wasn't like it had to feed our family. So we'll say, well, let's see where this goes, And then of course we had some early sponsors. Cox Automotive was a great sponsor of ours, and so many others, Lot Links and Allstate and so many others saw the visions, shared the vision with us and said, oh, we're on board. This is exactly what we need. Automotive News, and I might add, because a lot of people kind of compared us early on to Automotive News, but they do a phenomenal job. I just want to say that. I know a lot of people, subscribe to Automotive News, so do we. But when you look at their media kit, 81% of their readers and their consumers of their news are actually OEM and suppliers. There's only about 18 or 19% that are actually dealers. Okay, so they know this is the information and the content that we need to feed the OEM executives. We kind of flip that upside down, and we say all the content that we produce really needs to feed the dealer community.
Yes.
Has to be dealer centric. That's the first and foremost. Not consumer and dealer, not OEM.
Right.
It really needs to focus on what the dealer is going through each and every day to run his or her dealerships. And I say the dealer, but then everybody inside the dealership, a little over 1 million people that work inside of car dealerships, as you know, that's our audience. That's our North Star every single day. If we have a story on there, we currently produce 13 different shows on the CBT Automotive Network, focusing on different areas of the dealership operation. But if that content does not help a dealer sell or service a car, then what are we running it for? That's really what it's all about.
I want to pivot and redirect here.
Sure.
Tell us about Bridget.
Bridget is the chairman of the board.
And she's...
She is phenomenal. She was...
But she is to who to you?
Oh, she is my wife.
That's what I was going for.
I wanted to ask this question.
Yes.
Like, what's it like working together?
Well, you guys know.
That's why we're asking.
That's why we're asking.
So it's nice
Good question.
to ask
Good question.
another...
She is my wife, and if you had asked me 13 years ago, I would have said, there's no way in hell I'm working with my wife. There's no way, right? Yeah. It's not going to work. I'm a personality, and she's very methodical, and she puts a lot of thought into things. Same thing, right? And she's trying to hold on. It's like trying to hold on to Tigger by the tail, and it's like, oh my God, he's running all over the place. But I will tell you that the relationship that we have has been really the special sauce in CBT News. She runs the operations. She's like the brains of it all. In fact, many times we'll be getting ready in the morning and say, I've got a great idea. She'll go, wait a minute. Can we just focus on the last 14 great ideas that you had, okay? Because I'm still trying to play catch up.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly it. But for us, and it sounds like for you as well, that's what makes it work,
that's
right?
Exactly
because
what makes it work.
Sometimes, so we say he's the gas and I'm the brakes.
There you go.
So
And
sometimes he just wants to be full gas, and I'm like, wait, let's take a step back. Let's consider our options. Let's do some planning and preparation. However, if it was just me and that style, I would probably be stuck in planning and preparation mode forever.
That's right.
Right? So sometimes you do need a little bit of that gas and pump to get you going.
Yeah, there'd be no dealer synergy without you, and without you, obviously, together. Right. And there'd be no CBT News without Bridget that goes, whoa, wait a minute. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. That's a good idea. That's a bad idea. Let's move in this direction. Let's stay the course on certain things. And every now and then I'm able to win her over on some new ideas and what have you. And I count it as a big win. But then there's also times, I'm sure that you've experienced this, where I'm so passionate about something. I'm like, no, please, we got to do this. All right, I don't think we should do it, but let's do it.
100%.
And then it fails miserably.
Sometimes we're like,
I should have listened to her.
Let's let them get a win. Yes, feel like they're getting a win.
Right, and then the win becomes a loss, right? You're like, why didn't I listen to her when she told me not to hire that person or not to do this or that? Whatever the case might be. But overall, it works. And it's not like you guys know, it's not for everybody. I wouldn't want to sell anybody on working with their spouse, because you just don't know what the personality makeup is there, you know, and it's got to be for the right individuals. But we love it. We love it, and really, we have got 5 kids. It's a blended family, but we don't have any children, other than our little dog. We don't have any children between us. So the business is really our child. We talk about it at dinners. We talk about it at breakfast. We talk about it. It's really, that's what keeps us going. So it's funny.
See, for us, it's very, very similar. People ask us all the time, how do you do it? How do you live and work with your spouse?
Sure.
But for us, we say, how could we not?
Right.
You know what I mean? Life is so short.
Yeah.
And to your point, I don't try to sell anybody on working with their spouse either, but just for us, it's incredible. I mean,
and you share the same mission and goals, and you're both driving for the same thing.
That's right.
It works.
And you understand each other. So if you're on vacation and you're over there on your phone going, okay, I got to make payroll, I got to send out this. You get it. Like, what are you doing all the time? How come? Are we ever going to relax on vacation? That is relaxing on our vacation.
100%, yes.
If I can, what is your superpower as it relates to CBT? Is it interviewing? Because you said Bridget does operations. What are your guys' superpowers?
I think it is the interview. And although Bridget does a phenomenal job at interviewing, she's now got a show on we have another network called ASBN, America's Small Business Network, where we help entrepreneurs and small business owners doing the same kind of thing as CBT News, but now focused on small businesses. She has a show in there called The Female Founder, which she interviews female founders and does a phenomenal job at doing it. But probably my superpower is being able to interview these individuals, but from the car. I put my car dealer hat on. I was 25 years in the business, handled, like many car people, I worked every single job in the dealership, from salesperson to desk manager to used car manager to write and service. I did it all. So nobody's going to throw something at me in an interview that I can't go, whoa, wait a minute. What you just said does not work. It doesn't wash. So
have you ever had anybody change your paradigm on something when you're interviewing them?
Yeah, of course. And I will say, because I've been out of the industry on the front lines for 20 years, the industry has changed. Now, because of my seat here at CBT News, I've stayed on top of that change, you know. And some of the things that you guys shared with me in previous interviews, I'm like, wow, that's a kind of a cool thing that you're doing, I didn't know that could be done. So I'm also staying on top of the industry that way. But yes, to your question, they'll say, they'll convince me on something. I'll say, I never really thought about it that way. And yeah, that's great. The average age of today's dealer based on NADA is 70 years old, okay?
Wow.
70.
Wow.
So while everybody thinks, oh no, we need younger people and we need this and that, when you talk to a dealer, okay, those younger people out there, there's a generational gap that goes, we don't get what they're talking about, or we don't understand where they're coming from. So because I'm the old guy, I can go, I know exactly what this dealer principal is looking to hear in these interviews and what they want to know in order to run their dealerships better.
Speaking of which, I think, just my opinion, that not just you being a dealer yourself, former dealer, but also your role in force marketing.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference of being a vendor versus a dealer. And I think what's unique about your background that I think adds to your awesomeness at CBT News is that you have those two perspectives.
Sure.
As a dealer side and a vendor side.
No question.
Who is more fun for you to interview? Is it the dealers? Is it the association? Is it the vendors?
That's a great question. And it's a hard question to answer because
I'm asking it.
I know. You're good at this.
You're spot.
No, because there's some dealers that I really get a kick out of because they'll talk so candidly, about the industry, not caring about stepping on anybody's feet or wondering, am I going to hurt anybody if I say this? They just come right out and say it. Bingo, here it is.
Yeah,
they're all
direct.
multi-millionaires. And many of them are like, hey, I'm telling it like it is. I don't care. Win, lose. I'm going to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I love that. And of course, you get other dealers that, especially the publicly traded ones, that have to worry. They're like, we have stockholders, and we have stakeholders, and we have this and that.
Hang on
and
every word
more
and
times
make sure
than
that
not,
they're,
their PR company or their PR agent will call me back and go, hey, he or she said something that they weren't supposed to say. Can you take that out? Happens all the time. We're like, yeah, no problem. We'll take that out. But then of course we've got some very colorful vendors that will come on. You're one of them.
Yes.
That will say, hey, here's the
orange.
Right, very colorful. But no pun intended. But so it's interesting that way. Of course, the OEM executives that I interview always come on with an agenda. We want to make sure that the dealers understand what we're doing and we're listening to them, and they're much more polished. They come on with a much more of a hey, here's the way it is. Although I interviewed but Jack Hollis, who's executive vice president of Toyota, who's an amazing individual, does a phenomenal job with Toyota. I have yet to find a dealer principal that either doesn't love Toyota or would love to be a Toyota dealer. They just do a great job. Everybody agrees. And Jack is one of those guys he's a dealer's OEM, where you can talk to the guy and he tells it like it is, and a great guy to interview, and if you ever get an opportunity to do it. But there's a lot of those out there that will. However, the OEMs are much more, and the publicly traded companies are much more, cautious.
Yeah.
Much more, what am I going to say? I don't want it to be taken wrong,
That makes sense,
But,
Have you ever invited people with opposing views on to maybe discuss or debate a topic?
I haven't done enough of that. It's my goal in 2025 to do that. It's
debates.
it's not always
Debates,
easy because there are people who will say, well, who else is on the panel? And then we'll tell them I'm not going on with that guy. I'm not going on. So you're like, no, that's the idea.
Exactly.
Okay, that it is.
Sometimes you have to challenge each other's ideas so that you could, again, maybe create paradigm shifts.
That's right.
Or,
that's right.
create a bigger discussion.
Yeah. That was one of our biggest draws when we first started the Internet Sales 20 group. Do you remember Ralph Paglia?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Ralph,
we lost him during COVID. Yeah. Great guy.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
I've known Ralph for like 20 years, you know what I mean, before he passed away. And he was an early pioneer with us in the IS-20Gs. Sure. Him and J.D. Rucker would go head-to-head with opposing views, but the audience loved it because they're both very passionate.
Right.
And so, but sometimes that's really important to be able to give the different perspectives.
That's right.
But I agree. I think sometimes people are a little bit shy to do that, or they're a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
But if you ever are able to put that together, I think I would love to watch those episodes because that's how you really make decisions.
There's a mutual friend of ours, Jim Ziegler, who's going through some very difficult, challenging times right now. But he comes on the show and I love it because he tells it like, as you know, he tells it like it is.
And
everybody goes, oh, it's Jim Ziegler? I'm listening. Okay, he's a legend in the industry and he doesn't care who's listening to what. He's like, and he's been a dealer advocate for a long time, as you know, and he tells it like it is. And so it's great having him on.
We worked with Jim for about a decade, like very tightly. So it's sending prayers and thoughts and love.
Of course,
him.
no question. He and his wife.
Life is precious,
That's right.
and
That's right.
Debbie is an incredible woman. So
Absolutely.
my heart goes out to Jen.
There's another two that work together.
Yes.
Yes.
Another.
And
Yeah.
it works.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is on your radio.
This has been the most in-depth training I've had in my lot of years in the car business.
We went from 60 cars to 156 cars a month in 3 months.
NAMAD, the entire Toyota Chicago region, as well as the top automotive groups like Coons, Lithia, and Norm Reeves have all used Bradley On Demand to train their team.
They're the most comprehensive training company I've seen, and they by far have the best support system.
Doing 50 cars a month, topped out at 80. I can tell you that the Bradley On Demand training will get you to the next level.
And guess what? The world's #1 car salesman, Cody Carter, shares his exclusive strategies right here. You want his secrets? You gotta have Bradley On Demand.
What I learned from Bradley On Demand is you can teach an old dog new tricks. I thought I knew it all.
I thought it was just going to be the same old stuff. It's all new. It's all fresh. It's genuine material.
Bradley On Demand is just an incredible power tool. Every dealer should take advantage of that.
Our clients love Bradley On Demand. We've generated over $12 billion of additional revenue for our clients.
Went from selling 75 internet leads to we've hit almost 250 the last couple months.
I doubled my income. I sold 21 cars for 4 months straight.
If you're still not enrolled in Bradley On Demand, you're missing out on the best virtual automotive training in the world. Enroll now or contact us for a free test drive of the platform today.
I do have a question though. Grant Cardone, whenever he does his conferences, he books people that he personally wants to learn from. And then, is that part of how you do it at CBT News? Is like, for us, when we do our podcast, we look for people that we find that are interesting, not just for the audience, people that we want to learn from.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Give us a couple people that you've brought onto the show that you personally were excited to interview, not just for your audience, but for you personally.
I'll be happy to. Grant Cardone's one of them, by the way.
There you go. So, he's a funny interview. He's a great guy.
He's a great interview. He's bouncing off the walls.
He's straightforward, too.
He is straightforward. There's no question about it. And it's been really great. I know you guys agree to see his rise. We wrapped this big bus, or we did for like 4 or 5 years, like a motorhome, for NADA. We called it Road to NADA. He was our first guest on the bus, and he came off the bus. It was like a surprise to the dealership that we pulled up at. Well, he was the first guy. So we got to spend some time with him, meals and and what have you. And Jared was his who still is his VP. And it was just a great time with him. And he was we also hired him when I was running a Toyota dealership back in like 1992. He comes bouncing in, and hey, I've got a big convention or a big seminar I'm putting on. Can I talk to your salespeople? I was so impressed with the guy. I'm like, well, I don't know about let's try to sell them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, come on back and be a client. Let me be your client. Great guy, just a great guy. But yes, there are people. Let me read off some. So I learned something from Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. He has a great twist on sales training and what has to happen. Yeah, the guy did a couple of years.
You do know that Jordan and Grant had smoke, right?
Yes, I did. And I saw the video. Yes, I saw that. I think everybody did. Yeah. But a guy like John Gordon, who's an inspirational, motivational speaker, it's funny because when I interview them, I'll be listening to them, and sometimes I lose my track of the next question because I'm so enthralled with what they're saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm the interviewer here. But you got guys like David Meltzer and Guy Kawasaki,
legends.
Shep Hyken that we talked about, Neil Patel, Alan Weiss, Ken Blanchard, Jesse Itzler, just to name a few, by the way.
Jesse's amazing.
Jesse's amazing, right?
Yeah.
He comes out with some stuff that he came out with one where we're talking. He's like, well, how old are your parents? He does one of those, and okay, they're 75. Well, how old do you think they're going to live to? Probably 85. If everything goes right. How often do you visit them? I don't know. I see them like twice a year. Okay, so you only have 20 more times with your parents. You're like, wow. I'm going to go call him right now, right?
Yes.
So, it's just little things like that
Puts
that
things into
he
perspective,
brings. But I sit back. I had the benefit of listening. He sat where you are, Bob Nardelli, the former chairman of Chrysler. Through the toughest times in the industry, 2007, 2008, 2009, when he had to go before Congress and ask for billions of dollars, and we talked about that. But everything that drops out of his mouth, you're like, oh my God, this guy ran major corporations. He was the chairman and president of Home Depot for 7 years. But you can imagine. So I'm dumbfounded sometimes by the people that come in, and I'm just trying to soak it all up. Do
you have a strategy when you interview your guests, or do you freestyle, or do you have a structure?
So I do. I kind of go by bullet points to say, here are the things that I want to kind of go down the road. Of course, we do a good job. I think we do a good job on the pre-production and the pre-interview research, so that I know what I can say and what I want to, where I want to take it, and talk to them about some of the things that we have found, and then have them answer to that. And it doesn't always work out that way, because sometimes they'll come in and they'll be pitching a book or what have you. Dave Anderson, we're running a series right now. Dave Anderson.
Oh my God, he's another Leviathan.
Yeah. Oh my God, a huge fan of
Absolutely.
Dave. I mean, he does a great job, and when he gets talking, I'm just like making notes. I'm like, this is such good stuff right now. We have a 4-part series right now running with him, but on CBT News. But yeah, I try to do my research and then say this would make for the best interview. And every now and then they'll drop a huge bomb that I didn't even do the research. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that you had that in your past. Let's go down that rabbit hole,
Have you ever had the chance to interview Bradley from Lightspeed?
I have not.
He is hilarious.
Is he? Yeah.
Oh,
I watch him on, on his,
So he's a very, very good friend of ours. I'm going to be sharing the stage. I'm doing the keynote at Digital Dealer October 8th with Bradley.
Fantastic.
And I would love to connect you guys.
He built a hell of a company.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah, unreal.
For sure.
And he has a bunch of interest in
he and Grant are best friends.
Yeah, they're pretty... You realize
they've had their discussion.
But do you know that he set Grant on his path with the VT? That really kind of helped out tremendously.
Yeah, no question about it.
I have an important question for our audience, though. You are in a position that's very unique in our industry. So I want to talk about media training.
Sure.
Not enough people have media training, whether it's a regular podcast or if it's like live. Can you give our audience some advice on if they are going to do a podcast or they're going to do a Zoom interview, or if they've got the benefit to actually be on TV in the local station?
Yeah, sure.
How would you advise them to prep and be able to maximize that opportunity?
I one day want to get media training. so I think it's a great idea. My media training, this is funny, my media training came from watching so much media, right? And I would sit there and watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or anybody in the middle or on both the right and the left and what have you, and I would study them, and I'd be like, okay, I like the way this particular guy interviews, you know what I mean? Charlie Rose, for instance, before he, they canceled him. But I thought he was a great interviewer, and he would really get into somebody's mind. They'd all of a sudden, and you probably know from interviewing people, where you get out the niceties and they're kind of sitting up and they don't want to make a mistake. And then as the conversation goes on, they're more relaxed with you.
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, here comes the pearl. It might be 20 minutes in. It might be 30 minutes in, but it's coming.
Right.
Because they feel more relaxed, and you get some giggles in, and you get some commonality going on. And
that's because sometimes interviews can feel like interrogations,
They
right?
can. Yeah, there's no question about it.
So
the
you
more
have
that
to
you
have
can get
that
up to chuckle and laugh and just relax a little bit. Of course, we put vodka in there. No, I'm kidding. But
is that why you were seeing
that's
like
right.
a little over there?
But it's from the media training, and I mean that. I haven't had any professional media training, but after 3,000 interviews in the last 12 years, here's what I will tell you: go back and watch everything you do, because that sometimes can be the best training. If you're a podcaster, listen to your podcast. Don't say to yourself, well, I already did the podcast. I know what I said. I know what they said. There's no reason to listen. Big mistake. Go back, as painful as it might be, and listen to all of your podcasts, because you're going to learn and go, oh my God, I stepped on that guy's comment, or I went down the wrong road, or he wanted to say this, or she wanted to say this, and I said this. And would you agree?
100%.
You got to listen.
Advice.
You got to listen and go, oh my God, this is what my viewers or my listeners are listening to. I missed it,
Was it painful for you at first?
Oh my gosh, there's no question about it. It was painful for me. I would watch myself and say, oh my God, I didn't mean to say that, and I didn't realize I used my hands so freaking much, in these interviews, but I do, And
try having a blind producer like we do.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
The attention to detail that LA
imagine.
has is absolutely insane.
Of course.
He's very, very specific and perfectionist, so to speak.
That's great.
Sure.
And but yeah, it's from a standpoint of just listening to what your viewers and your listeners are going to listen to. And if that's you, it could be your voice, could be your cadence, could be your timing. Sometimes we step on people's, the next best thing they're going to say, and you blew it because you went down another question too quickly. And I think the viewers are like, we wanted to hear what he was going to say about this topic or that.
So would you say that sometimes silence is okay?
Silence is magic. There's no question about it. Sometimes, and I've got to learn this, and my viewers know this, if you can just shut up for another 15 seconds, okay, the person starts to then think about what they just said, and they go even deeper, okay? But if you come up with the next question, or yeah, that's great. Another thing I have the tendency to do is, maybe it's the New Yorker in me. My first 10 years of my life, I grew up in New York with my parents. Not that I left my parents, but we moved to South Florida, and which is another New York. But
Yes.
I have a tendency to, when people are talking, I go, right, 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 yes, right. And if I don't catch myself, my producer inside will go, you never shut up. Ask the question, and then just let them answer the question without the, yes, right, I got it, yep, right. I don't need that. So,
how do you handle a person you're interviewing that is either shy or nervous or not a good interviewer?
Yeah, that happens. That happens. And it's funny because it'll happen from people that you would never imagine. You're in awe of this individual, right? They speak at conferences and they're on TV and what have you, and they'll come in and they'll be almost, they can't even get the words out because they're so nervous as soon as the cameras go on, and they'll say, okay, 3, 2, 1, you're on, and they're just like, oh my gosh, oh my God. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll let the interview go for 15 minutes. They start to relax. I say, okay, let's do this. Okay, that was great. Now that you know me, now that I know you, let's start over. Okay, and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Because the first 15 minutes I was so nervous.
Yeah.
But once they get the feel of it, and we have 4 cameras in here that in our studio, the more that I can make eye contact with the individual and they forget about the cameras, the better off we are. Because if they're looking at the cameras, they're like, oh my gosh, how do I look? How do I sound? I don't want to say the wrong thing. But the more eye contact I can have with somebody, then they start to relax, and I get the good stuff out of them.
What's your single most favorite interview you did?
Oh my God, I'm going to piss a lot of people off with this one. The single greatest interview.
Or maybe if you had to do a repeat interview with someone because you love that.
Because I love the interview so much.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a huge and I'm a huge fan of this guy because I think he's done so much for the industry. But I really enjoyed my time with Mike Jackson, president of AutoNation.
Okay.
I thought he told it like it was. I think he's a very, very bright individual, very bright about the automotive industry. And he connected with me, and I worked at AutoNation for 3 years of my life as the national sales training manager. Got to see him a couple of times, not a lot, kind of like, hey, how you doing? I don't even know if he knew who I was at the time. But I will tell you, he is fantastic. And so the guy that worked with him, Mike Maroney, and 2 great interviews. They just have got such a tremendous amount of knowledge about the industry. And they tell you the way it is, So I've always enjoyed my time with them. But it's such a difficult question to answer because I know that there's so many people going, damn, I thought we had a great interview. But
you can blame me that I forced you.
No, yeah, exactly. I'll say I had to pick 1 or 2, but those
All
are
right,
2
so
great.
let's fast forward 12 months from now. What are you doing here at CBT?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've got a lot of plans for CBT News as we go into 2025. One of those things is what we really want to bring to the table. We bring the news. We produce 13 different shows currently on the network, all of them hosted by subject matter experts in their field, like Adam Marburger, who's got the F&I show, and Dave Canton, who's got Inside M&A, and Jen Suzuki, who does BDC and some other things, Jonathan Dawson, Cheyenne Malone, who's a part of our news team here. She's got diversity in automotive, Colin Carasquillo, who's a marketing manager. So we've got those shows. We want to keep those going and build on them. But we want to make a bigger effort to provide kind of self-help, if you will, information and content to the industry. We all go through tough times. We all struggle with whether it be our weight or whether it be our attitude or whether it be leadership or whatever the case might be. We want to also bring those experts in, and we want to make a bigger play for that. So when somebody comes to CBT News, not only do they get their news and information and also watch the shows, but there's always something there to go, wow, this is a really good motivation piece that I'm going to focus on, or how to be a better leader. Or it might be how to get the most out of your day, how to organize. You guys are Franklin Covey certified certified trainers. How do we bring more of that to CBT News rather than just the news and the information, the content, the great interviews? Now I want CBT News to go in the direction of really being able to help the million people that work inside of the car dealership business that don't typically get it. There's not other platforms out there that deliver that kind of content from my viewpoint. But as you know, I'm big on, I listen to Mel Robbins and so many others, each day. And it's what drives me. I got to get up in the morning and listen to Joe Dispenza, huge Joe Dispenza fan, my wife and I. And we start to finish each other's sentences, and we help each other throughout the day, even to the point that we say, what would Joe say, about that,
Yeah, what would Joe say?
Because you got to get your mind right back in it, and as you know, the auto industry can be it's a pressure cooker, and as my first GM, when I started selling cars, I said, well, what's the schedule? He took me over to the door, and he goes, see these hours? Yeah, that's your schedule, okay? 8:30 to 10 every single day, be here, don't even ask for a day off until you sold 20 cars a month. And, we live in a different world today, but it's hard to stay pumped and motivated and focused and fit and eat the right things and say the right things and don't let your head get filled up with all of those negative demons that are out there, because it's going to throw you off your game. I don't care if you're the dealer, the GM, the salesperson, the lot attendant, whatever it might be, those demons have a way to creep right in. And if you're around other people in the dealership business, get the hell away from them if they're bringing that toxicity to you.
The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is on your radio.
This episode is brought to you by Podium. Here's a question. How much would your business change if you had one more employee who worked 24/7 to turn every lead, including the ones that come in after hours, into a test drive, sale, and more money for your dealership? Meet Jerry, Podium's new AI BDC. Jerry is a lead conversion powerhouse designed to respond instantly to every incoming lead, to answer questions accurately, keep leads warm, and schedule test drives, all without direct human supervision. And the best part, with a seamless handoff to staff on the sales floor, customers will never know they were interacting with an AI to begin with. See how Podium's AI BDC can help you sell more cars by visiting podium.com/MCS. That's podium.com/MCS, or click the link in the show notes below.
Sometimes it's hard to do. Joe Verdi calls it the huddle, where everybody is the meeting after the sales meeting that they go out and then they get fed with all of this negativity. Oh, he's talking about selling 20. There's no way you can sell 20. The pay plan stinks here, and we got the wrong cars, and we're too high in all the used cars, and the advertising isn't kicking in.
Yeah.
And these
all
are
the
conversations.
Why you can't.
Exactly. Yeah. The BDC sucks, and the training, and whatever it might be. If we could win we could win over the hearts and minds of the people inside the dealership, you're looking at a winning dealership. It's usually the minds of the people in the dealership that determine whether or not it's going to be a success. Would you agree? I mean,
1,000%.
Yeah.
Jim, I don't know if you know, but Karen is NASM certified, which is the National
great.
Academy of Sports Medicine, as a personal trainer, weight loss specialist, and a nutritionist.
Well, we will be calling on you then.
No, on her.
Right.
The reason, to your point, I fully agree, is because if all we do is try to develop people conventionally with the road to the sale and product knowledge, that's like going to the gym and just working out your biceps and having chicken legs.
That's right. Which is me, by the way, but go ahead.
I really believe that if we want to have the most productivity out of somebody, it's got to be mind, body, and soul. It's more than just word tracks. It's a holistic approach.
That's
Karen, can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, Franklin Covey, the 7 Habit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sharpen the saw.
Yep.
It's taking care of the most important asset that you possess, which is yourself.
That's right.
Right, and a lot of people neglect that, especially in the auto industry.
I know.
In the stores, because they're just focused on, I need to sell a lot of cars, I need to make a lot of money, and they're ordering takeout.
That's right.
They're not working out.
That's right.
They're not spending time with friends and family. So they're putting all of these things on the back burner, and at the end of the day, then they might have poor health.
Mm-hmm.
They might have poor relationships.
Right.
They may, just have a lot of bad experiences that they could prevent from trying to have more balance.
Yeah, 100%. And you see it. You can almost pick them out when you walk into a showroom. Just the way that they stand or the way that they sit, or you see it on their face. And they almost walk up to people, in the showroom and go, "You don't want to buy a car today, right?" Right. You're like, no. Oh my gosh, this
like,
person's
I'm bothering this guy.
That's right. That's right. And you can see it, an attitude. One thing I've learned is, behind every great salesperson is a positive mental attitude.
Yes.
And behind every loser, I say that, affectionately, but behind every salesperson that's bounced around dealership to dealership, thinking that the problem is the dealership they're working at, okay, rather than maybe themselves and getting themselves right. Mm-hmm. And when they decide to do that, all of a sudden the dealership that they're working at is the greatest dealership in the world. And you're like,
Success leaves clues, and there's a reason that there's 45 million copies of the 7 Habits in print. There's a reason almost 80% of all Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 corporations put their executives through the Signature Series or the Foundation Series of the curriculum, because you're correct. If you just are on one path and you're not feeding the rest, like Karen is saying, as far as sharpen the saw, you're not going to have a very productive human being.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's pivot to you being the subject matter expert because of CBT News in the industry. Tell us, as we go into 2025, what do you and CBT News feel is buzzing? What are the topics that are really buzzing or important in our industry right now?
Right. So, there's 4 letters, EV and AI, right? I mean, that's those are the 4 letters that everybody keeps talking about. It was for the first couple of last few years, it was, it's all going in on AI. And we saw the transformation. It's all going in on AI. OEMs were changing it. They're changing their lineup of cars and everybody's getting excited about it. And now all of a sudden that's on the downslide. It's like, all right, we got to get that under control. The consumers just aren't there on the EV situation. And now, of course, AI, everything's got to be AI. Every single thing in the dealership, what we're talking about, how does it impact, a dealer's bottom line? So we have so many shows on that as well. We also have a lot of shows, quite honestly, on the franchise structure. As we know it today, there are some things that threaten that, such as some of these car companies that are coming in already here into the U.S. that sell directly to consumers. There's dealers out there that are very concerned about that model taking hold, and you may have some of the legacy dealers maybe taking a look at more of like an agency relationship as they do in Europe with their dealer principals, or I should say their dealer body. That's very troublesome, where they want to make it very homogenized. That says, look, you're going to sell the car. We're going to determine what kind of gross profit it is. Maybe it's 5% that you're going to make. Oh, by the way, you can keep all your used car business. You can keep your service business. We'll play more of a role as the OEM in the sales process directly with the consumer, and then have them pick it up at your dealership, Mr. or Mrs. Dealer. You'll make a little sniping for that, And that happens today in other countries, where the OEM plays much more of a role. And there's some concerns out there that we may see that over the course of the next 10 or 20 years,
So if you were able to categorize by percentage, the CBT News' focus, is it more like on the skill path, or is it more of awareness?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think it's probably a 50-50 split on that. And we try to open up the discussions on all of these topics, but then at the end of the day, it does get back to the skill set and the mindset of the dealers that run their dealerships. And and we also try to bring people together, because you've got OEMs that. And I feel for the OEMs because they have a very big job too, and they want the customer to have a great experience. That's not always the case at the dealership level. And sometimes I get text messages or emails from friends of mine. Oh, you're beating up on the car dealer. Sometimes the car dealer needs to get beaten up on. I've purchased enough cars to realize, is this really 5 hours in the showroom that I told the GM when I got here? I totally agree with the price. I totally agree with the trade allowance. I agree with everything. I really got to get in and out of there. Oh, no problem. No problem, Jim. You'll be out here in no time. 5 hours later. Sometimes in the business, you can't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
The people inside the dealership don't know what the consumers are going through. And if they do, and they're still doing it, well, then shame on them. Something's got to change. We have to change that process.
It's interesting that you say that, because in between breaks, one of your team members came back from hiatus and said, hey, same conversation.
That's right. So, he's been gone 6 months. He comes back. He's like, oh my God.
Same conversation. So my next question to you is: sometimes I feel, because I'm so passionate about this industry, because it's what it's done for me and my family.
Sure,
like I love this industry.
You built a hell of a company.
We're blessed beyond belief. Our children involved. One of our daughters, Steph, and I manage one of our daughters there. Yeah. But I sometimes feel like we can't get out of our own way sometimes. Like I think that by 2025, we shouldn't have the same antiquated conversations about calling people back or about basic stuff. How can dealers and OEMs and vendors, how can we get past the basics? See, we can't do next level stuff if we can't even handle the basics. So how do we get to just complete these basics?
I know. You had mentioned earlier about in one of our interviews where it's so difficult to talk to a dealer as to why they need to change when, as you said, when they're fishing, the fish are jumping in the boat.
And they're fat.
And they're fat. So it's a question of, the dealers, it's funny because all of a sudden when the dealer says, oh my God, that store is 25 or 30% off. We went from making $200,000 a month to losing $200,000 a month. They're all ears. Okay, how do I fix this? So I don't want to say, going through tough times is a good thing or I wish on anybody, and I don't. But boy, you sure have a much more attentive dealer principal when they're going, hey, something's broken here, okay?
When they suffer
we got to
type
fix
of
it.
consequence.
Yeah, exactly. I remember at Force Marketing, that we'd have dealers that say, oh, the marketing's not working. You got to get in here. You got to meet with me. The marketing's not working. My managers told me the marketing is not working. We got to go in a different direction, Jim, okay? And of course, it's a client of mine and maybe a friend of mine. And I'd say, great, no problem. I'll be there tomorrow, in your showroom. Let's go up in the conference room and hash this thing out, figure out where the problem is. And I would say, before we get started, okay, on this meeting, I want to play something for you, okay? And I would play the last 4 phone calls that came into their showroom that we recorded through our software. Yeah. I never made it to the 4th call. The dealer would say, shut that off. I can't listen to this. Oh my God, you're killing me. Mr. Dealer, when the phone call's answered like that, if it's even answered, is that an internal problem or is that a marketing problem? If you want to fix the hole in the boat, I'm all about it, okay? But please don't tell me it's because of some other external reason like marketing that prevents your sales department from picking up the damn phone, okay?
You know went Sean Bradley on them right there.
Yes, exactly. So, it's so frustrating because, with the marketing people, and in your case, you're running a BDC company, you're not there in the conference room. So the easiest person or vendor to beat up on, the easiest entity, is the one that's not in the room. So now the dealer gets there, gets all of his generals around, the new car manager, GSM, BD, who's at fault for this sucky month that we just had? Gross profit units, they're all off. Yeah, and it's usually pointing outside the showroom, outside that conference room. Well, it's because we got a BDC company that blows, and we got a marketing company that's all wrong, and we're hooked up with this software to find cars for us, and they're sending it the wrong. Never have I been in a meeting where GSM goes, man, did we drop the ball? Okay, we could have done a better job at answering phone calls. We could have done a better job on our sales training. We could have done a much better job closing more of these ups that come in the door. I've never heard that from any sales manager.
What's that saying? If you point your finger, there's 4 more.
That's exactly right. Yes, 4 more fingers pointing right back at you because it's probably your fault. And but it is, to your point, we still are challenged in that with showing dealers that you gotta fix. I think you said it earlier, keep the main thing basically, but you got to fix the dealership operation, because not a software in the world is going to fix that, or a marketing company, you're looking for a magic bullet or a magic bullet BDC company to come in here and fix it all. And they're going to help, they're going to coach you, they're going to work with you. But if that team inside that dealership, you haven't won over the hearts and minds and fixed that problem, then you're in trouble,
Big question for you, former dealer, with your experience. How do you get a dealer or a GM to hold their people accountable? Because I find, as a trainer, consultant, a lot of times the dealer and the GM, they stroke the check, they're bought in, but if they can't get their people to follow the yellow brick road, things don't work.
That's right.
So what is your advice for that question? How do you get the dealer or GM to hold their people accountable, even if it might not be?
It's probably one of the most difficult things to do because for so many reasons, right? The dealer has got the people that are bulletproof. Oh, that's my buddy. This is my brother-in-law. That's so-and-so. And a lot of family members in the car business. Yeah, I know but I hear what you're saying, Sean, but that's my brother-in-law's sister's aunt's cousin's best friend, okay? So we can't lose them, okay?
Or
so
Bob's been here 30 years.
Bob's been here 30 years and his kid works in the parts department. I can't let Bob go. Guess who knows that? Bob. Bob knows that, okay? So he's going to go, yeah, I like your BDC program. Get it out of my face. Right. Okay, I'm not doing that. Now, when Bob does that, 7 other newcomers go, oh, this is optional? We don't have to do this? Well, I'm not doing it. So one of the questions I always ask when I would take over a dealership is I would say to the dealer principal, is anybody bulletproof? Can I fire anybody that I need to in order to turn this dealership around? And if the answer was no, you can't, we got a problem. Right. Okay. And by the way, who is it? Okay. If it's a family member, look, it's your kid, it's your son. I get that, you know. But if you rattle off more than 2 or 3 people, okay, guess I'm working for those people when I take that dealership over. Right. I'm working for them. And what happens is you'll see sometimes, to get back to your question of how do you win those people over and hold them accountable, it's very, very difficult, because when you go to the GM and you say, man, this guy is not following, to your point, the yellow brick road and falling in place here. I need that person to do that because all the others are looking at him, okay? And he's killing me right now, or she's killing me right now. How do we get control of that person and hold them accountable? If the answer is anything other than they either get on board or they leave the organization, okay, then you have a problem, right? I mean, absolutely. Because if they can stay and they're going to fight you tooth and nail, and it can't be, well, Jim, that guy sold me 25 cars last month, okay? And then you do some research and you go, yeah, he should have sold you 55 cars last month, okay? But he picked and, he was so smart, he was stupid. And, he said, I'm going to take this up and not that one. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to follow up on this one, not that one. We've all seen those games. And by the way, sometimes those people leave the organization and it raises everybody's numbers, Yep. So it's a very tough thing. I don't know. I don't know that I have the answer to that directly.
Oh, that was a heck of an answer, though.
It was.
That was definitely on point. You've done this before.
Well, you got to hold the dealer accountable, and until the dealer wants to be held accountable, because it's a partnership. Hey, we know, at Dealer Synergy, we know what we can do. Now, Mr. Partner or Mrs. Partner, are you going to partner? Are you going to, Mr. Dealer, Mrs. Dealer, are you going to partner with us to get this ship headed in the right direction? And I don't mean just cut me a check, okay? Anybody can cut me a check for $5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever the number is, doesn't matter. It's so much more than that. It has to be a true partnership that goes, we understand what your company does, and we're right there. You tell us what our next move needs to be, and we'll do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
As we start to wind down the show, what do you do when you're not taking over the world news? Like, what do you do for fun?
Bridget, how you mean?
Yeah.
We have 6 grandkids.
God bless.
I know we have 5 kids between us. Our 2 oldest, or my 2 oldest, I had 4. Bridget has 1. But my 2 oldest, my son and daughter, each have 3 kids, and they live here in Atlanta, which is great. And so we're all, it's funny, out of the 5 kids, with the exception of my youngest daughter who just left college, they're all in the business with us. Our 2 sons work here at the media company, and then, of course, my son and daughter work at Forrest. My daughter opened up her own branding company, so she's the company for Forrest. So it's kind of all intermingled. So you can imagine, well, you guys probably do the same thing. You get the dinners together, and you go, hey, did that guy call you about that deal? How much, do we make any money on that deal? Are you going to call that guy back?
Hey, that's what I call time maximization.
Yes.
Spending quality time together, but at the same time.
That's exactly right. Let's make the most of this, right? I mean, the only thing that we need is like a projector. We go, let's review last month.
And you said you have dogs?
I do. We have one little dog that is
what kind of dog?
It's a Maltese and Yorkie, so it's a Morkie. A Morkie.
We've got 3 pugs.
Oh, do you really?
Yes,
okay, wow, that keeps you busy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we just rescued an albino pug.
Oh wow, no
she's
kidding.
very, very unique.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She's amazing.
Yeah, our dog, but like your dogs, they run the house. They run the house. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and we keep swearing that we're not going to eat another dog when this dog, passes. It's 10 years old next month. And but I don't know. I think we're probably going to have a dog. I can't imagine us without a dog. And my wife is like, "No, we're not getting a dog." But they bring a lot of joy.
Until she brings the dog home.
That's exactly right. The puppy dog clothes. Yeah,
yes.
the puppy dog clothes.
Well, listen, Jim, it was an honor to be able to come into your house and be able to do a takeover.
Yes, absolutely. I'm honored to be on your podcast. It's great.
Absolutely. We really appreciate it. So, again, this is Sean V. Bradley and
Karen Bradley.
And we are here at CBT News with Jim Fitzpatrick. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Fast response times can help you beat the dealer down the street. Get a tool that can respond to your leads in 15 seconds or less and help you book test drives 24/7, nights and weekends, so you can sell more cars. Podium's AI BDC is a conversational AI employee who sells, schedules, and talks with customers day and night and sounds like your best sales rep. Transform potential interest into sales today with Podium. Visit podium.com/MCS to see what AI can do for your dealership. That's podium.com/MCS or click the link in the show notes.